Nigel Farage challenges BBC over migrant housing concerns. Interview turns tense. In a recent BBC interview that quickly went viral, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage raised eyebrows with a fiery critique of the UK government's approach to housing for asylum seekers and migrants. The tense exchange, which left the BBC host momentarily stunned, focused on the growing strain on housing infrastructure and the perceived lack of transparency surrounding migrant accommodation arrangements. While the discussion was intense, it reflected broader national debates over immigration, housing, and the responsibilities of local councils and central government issues that continue to dominate headlines as the UK prepares for upcoming elections. During the live segment, the BBC host questioned Farage on Reform UK's immigration proposals. Farage quickly redirected the conversation, highlighting what he described as the mismanagement of the housing system, particularly the use of hotels and temporary accommodations for asylum seekers. According to Farage, local residents have voiced frustration over what they see as unfair prioritization, a belief that migrants are being housed in facilities while UK citizens remain on lengthy waiting lists for council housing. He cited examples of hotels in coastal and urban towns being repurposed as temporary housing, placing additional pressure on local resources. People are fed up, Farage said. They see billions spent on temporary migrant housing, while British families have been on waiting lists for years. The host, in response, pressed Farage on whether such claims risked stoking public resentment or misrepresenting the reality of the situation. She noted that the UK, as a signatory to international refugee conventions, has legal and moral obligations to provide shelter for those seeking asylum. The exchange brought public attention to a complex policy issue. According to recent Home Office figures, more than 50,000 asylum seekers are currently being housed in hotels, costing the government over £8 million per day. This approach has been described by both critics and officials as unsustainable. Meanwhile, local councils have reported increased pressure on housing availability, though they often note that this is part of a much wider crisis affecting housing supply across the country, one driven by years of underinvestment, population growth, and limited new builds. Supporters of Farage's position argue that the current system is inequitable and fuels public distrust. Detractors, however, warn that framing the housing issue as a conflict between migrants and citizens oversimplifies the situation and risks dividing communities. Following the interview, several government officials responded, with a Home Office spokesperson saying, "The UK continues to uphold its commitment to provide safe housing for asylum seekers. At the same time, we are accelerating plans to reduce hotel usage and move toward more community-based solutions." BBC viewers took to social media to share mixed reactions. Some praised Farage for raising what they believe are ignored concerns, while others criticized his framing as potentially inflammatory. A comment from one viewer read, "Farage asked questions that many are thinking. Whether you agree with him or not, the system clearly isn't working." Others, however, warned against generalizing the issue, pointing out that most migrants do not receive preferential treatment and that asylum processes are governed by strict legal protocols. Nigel Farage's return to frontline politics under the Reform UK banner has reignited national conversations around immigration, sovereignty, and housing policy. His recent interviews have leaned heavily on the message that Britain is full, reflecting long-standing concerns among a segment of the electorate. Reform UK has proposed tighter border controls, faster deportation of rejected asylum claims, and stricter criteria for immigration. The party has also called for a moratorium on housing migrants in hotels, suggesting investment instead in new housing for both migrants and citizens under a transparent quota system. But political opponents, including Labour and the Liberal Democrats, argue that such proposals lack nuance and overlook the UK's legal obligations under the 1951 Refugee Convention and other human rights agreements. Farage's comments and the reaction to them underscore a national dilemma: how to balance humanitarian responsibilities with finite public resources. The UK is far from alone in facing this challenge. Across Europe and North America, similar debates rage over how to manage migration flows while maintaining public support. Policy experts suggest that rather than fueling division, the discussion should focus on long-term solutions, investing in housing, streamlining asylum processes, and supporting both citizens and newcomers in a way that strengthens communities rather than splits them. The Farage BBC interview may have lasted only a few minutes, but its impact is likely to reverberate through political debates in the months ahead. As the UK grapples with rising housing demand, ongoing migration, and tightening public budgets, questions about fairness, prioritization, and national identity remain at the heart of public discourse. What's clear is that leaders of all parties will need to move beyond soundbites to deliver real, workable solutions or risk further erosion of public trust. What's your take on the migrant housing issue? Do you think current policies are fair, or is reform overdue? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the bell icon to stay informed on the latest UK political developments.